Hi, my name is Ericka Jones, and I want to tell you a little bit about myself and why I choose to live on. I am a chair user. I was born with spina bifida, and I'm from a very small village in central New York. Um, Growing up, I was the only disabled person that I had known, really, because um, the only other disabled children that I even knew of were segregated from me and put into special education classes while I was put into mainstream courses throughout elementary school and throughout junior high. Um, so I never got an opportunity to get to know any other disabled kids um, or meet anybody with my same disability until I was a lot older. And when I tell you um, how crushing that is, not exaggerating, I grew up with very able and I grew up with a self hatred, I would say, um, when it came to my disability. And as I grew older, I realized that I actually had other disabilities as well, which included multiple learning disabilities and um, depression and anxiety. And it was only when I was in my early 20s that I was even diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder um, and depression. Now, it was it was hard enough trying to get through a society that wasn't built for a chair user, living in a village that was very old, and a lot of the buildings were very old. So if I needed to get anywhere, I would need to be carried, which was, I won't say it was fine, but it was what happened when I was a lot younger. But as I got older, I started to find that I was being kept out of activities. Um, and that really started to wear on me. Um, but when it came to my invisible disabilities, um, I was always treated like I wasn't trying hard enough. When it came to my depression, um, I didn't get the help that I needed, and I was treated as though I was a burden on my entire family because nobody could understand why I was so sad all the time. Nobody could understand the physical side of it either because no one else in my family had a physical disability. So, well, I've come to terms with that as I've grown. It was very difficult. And there was a time in my life where I found that um, the inaccessible environment I was growing up in was too much for me. I was finding that I was being pushed to my physical limits because I was forced to wear braces. I was forced to use crutches. And even though it hurt my physical body and it hurt me mentally because I could never be what I was expected to be, and it was never said, but I always assumed that what I was expected to do was to work at not being disabled, and that crushed me. And so now um, I started to make my own choices when I was 21. I decided that I would no longer use the crutches and the braces, and I would become a chair user full time. And there's been some freedom in that choice. My wheelchair gives me the freedom to get where I need to get in a different fashion. And I'm not as exhausted as I was trying so hard to be something that I wasn't. I was very fortunate that um, 4 years ago, I moved to New York, and I moved for a position at an independent living center. I was fortunate in that way because all of a sudden I was surrounded by people like me. I was surrounded by disabled people who had pride for who they were. And I was only in the beginning stages of being proud of myself and knowing that I was okay the way I was. And I won't I won't lie and say that the depression has gone away or that it's gotten significantly better, because it hasn't. I still have days where I wake up and I don't feel good about myself. But that has nothing to do with the fact that I'm in a chair. That is because I have depression. And it took me a very long time to realize that my physical disability is not immediately linked to my mental health, as was suggested by society and doctors. I would go into the doctor's office and I would hear comments like, wow, I can see why you're depressed because it must be really hard being in a chair. If you just simply went back to physical therapy, then maybe you wouldn't be so sad. But that's not true. That is just simply a very ableist remark. So I continue to live on because I know that there's a community out there that understands. I continue to live on because there's important work to be done. That I am a small part of a much bigger community, and there are people who there that will support me and listen. And I would say for anybody who's having feelings, negative feelings, um, about their disability, about their life, whatever, that I'm here. If you ever need to talk, I'm here. There are other resources for help. Go to your independent living center. Talk to the staff, talk to them about what's going on. Maybe it's as simple as maybe your environment isn't accessible and you haven't accepted that the environment is what's wrong, not you. Maybe it's something else. But you'll never know until you try. So contact your local community. It really does take a village. And continue to live. Find a reason. It doesn't have to be a substantial reason, but find a reason